I'm Mina Malik Hussain and you're watching The Coffee Table. And as always, we have a fantastic show for you today. I'm always so excited when we talk about women's health and well-being on The Coffee Table, and today is one of those shows we are venturing into a topic we have never ventured into before. And you also know, long-time viewers of this show know that we like to keep coming back to issues from different angles to sort of get more and more information, out of the wonderful doctors who take out time away from their clinics and their patients to come and talk to us and to give you answers to all the questions you've wanted to ask and should not be Googling, but instead be listening to an actual doctor tell you very sensible things. I really feel like Google has probably aggravated many doctors in their clinics at several occasions. But today we're going to be talking about menopause. We're going to be busting some myths about it. We're going to be talking about what happens, what to expect, how long is it going to take? Is it the end of all things? No, it's not. And I'm delighted to be welcoming on the show today Dr. Ariba Saqib, who is a gynecologist and an obstetrician who practices at the Saqib Fertility and IVF Center here in Lahore, where she is an IVF and test tube baby consultant. We are also joined by Dr. Razia Tanveer, who is a fellow and a member of the Royal College of Gynecologists and Obstetricians in the United Kingdom and is a consultant OBGYN at Shifa International Hospital in Islamabad. Welcome to the show, doctors. Lovely to have you both here. Just going to put my notes aside for a second. So Dr. Razia, I like to sort of begin at the beginning, as I always say. And so when we talk about menopause, what is this condition that we are referring to?
Menopause, when we talk about the menopause, it is a condition that every woman has to go through in her life.
Right.
Okay. It is a transition from the menstrual phase to the non-menstrual phase, you can say, into the menopause stage. And that normally we expect to take place, if I talk about the average age, it is about 52 years, or to be precisely 51 years plus 4 months, okay?
Oh,
but
that is quite specific.
Before. Yeah, it can happen before and it can happen afterwards also. Like from 45 to 55, it can happen. I mean, it depends. In some people it happens, some women it happens before, and in some women it happens after. Right. So what happens in the menopause is that a woman who is getting the regular periods before gradually enters into the premenopausal phase, where her periods start getting irregular. Right. And then they get spaced, like they start getting late or they start getting frequent, and then gradually they finish.
Okay. So irregular means they are too close, they're not far, either they're too far apart or they're too close together, because you need to have at least, it's a 4-week cycle usually. So that's important to, I'm glad you clarified that irregular doesn't just mean that they're late, it means that they can be too frequent also. So yes, please continue.
Yeah. So this is the one symptom that that a woman experiences, that her periods become irregular. Right. Okay. So normally, if I talk about a smooth menopause, what happens is that a woman starts getting the periods initially after 2 months, then 4 months, then 6 months, and then for a year she has no period. Okay. So we classify menopause when there are no periods for almost 1 year. Okay.
Continuously.
And then continuously. Okay. Yeah. She stops getting the periods for 1 year, and then finally she doesn't get the periods. Right. And apart from that, there is one test which we call as the follicle stimulating hormone. Yes. We test it at the day 3 of the cycle, and we see that what are its levels. If it is more than 25, 2 readings 6 weeks apart, then plus the patient hasn't got the periods for the 1 year, then we classify her that she has entered into the menopause stage. Okay. So this is precisely what is menopause is. Okay. Apart from this menstrual irregularity, there are many other things that women experiences at the same time. Okay. Right. So I'm just talking about the symptomatology right now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The women experiences sometimes the hot flashes. She experiences the body heat coming from the chest and dissipating all over her body. Yeah. And that is followed and the redness of the face, and finally there are perspiration or sweating.
Yeah. So you get that heated up that you're sweating and you're red in the face. So it's like a real thing.
Yeah. That is what we call them, hot flashes.
Yes.
Okay. And this is one of the symptoms. Then they experience loss of libido. Their sexual health is disturbed.
Yes.
Then they start developing the urinary problems. That is also a part of the menopause. And then because of these night sweats, or you can say these hot flashes, hot flashes, they are not able to sleep properly at the night. So they have the loss of sleep. They start getting irritated, depressed.
Of course, and anybody would.
Yeah.
If you can't sleep at night, it does make you a cranky person in the day.
Yeah, and they're anxious, and they are not able to focus. So it's not simply that the periods finish. There are many other things going on within the body. So this is the main presentation, how the women present to us.
And thank you much. That is an extremely helpful and really kind of exhaustive list of different symptoms that one could be experiencing, and most women experience this, or a variety or a combination of these symptoms when you are experiencing menopause. Now, Ariba, I read, now again, layperson who reads things, that, menopause is this event where you don't have a period for 12 months and, you take your FSH tests and at certain levels and you've established this. But there's also like a pre-menopause phase, and then there is a post-menopause phase, right? And both of them also take their own time. And I read about how the pre-menopause phase can last like anywhere from a few months to several years also. So sort of what's going on in these two phases as well?
That's brilliant. Well, it's, as Dr. Saiba rightly said, it's basically a transitional phase for the body. So we are switching from fertile phase, where ovaries are working perfectly well, they're ovulating, they're producing brilliant eggs every month, to the phase where the ovary is going to be depleted of all the ovarian reserve, and there would be no more eggs available to ovulate or to get the female pregnant. So this transition, as we see the symptoms that bring, as we see the irregularity of the menstruation, this is basically coupled with changes in hormones in the female body. So basically the main hormone that is being changed during the perimenopausal phase till the woman takes a shift to the postmenopausal stage of her life, it's basically estrogens are the main culprit here. They drastically, they decline, they fall, and eventually they can hardly be traced in the body. In the blood levels are so low. And along with them, the progesterones and the testosterone, their levels also fall. And all the symptoms that she's feeling are basically because of these hormones. And as I said, mainly because of the estrogens.
Yes.
So as we were discussing all the symptoms and all the transitions, and as you were saying, Mina, you were saying a few years, a few females, they have to go through the perimenopausal phase for at least 10 years.
10 years?
They become 10 years, can you imagine that? All that transition, all that anxiety, and this adds to the anxiety of the females as well. They don't know what's happening to them.
Yes.
One day they get their periods, one month they get their periods twice in that month, next 4 months they are period free, then again. So haphazard that the female feels very anxious and very uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
This adds to her anxiety.
And 10 years is an incredibly long amount of time. And the thing is that if you on average, one expects to hit menopause by 50 or 51 or 51 in 4 months. That means you spend your 40s in this kind of era of declining estrogen that is making you fatigued and irritable, and your cycle is wonky and you can't sleep that well. So it's... And I think that a lot of times women probably ascribe it to aging in general, that, I'm getting old. But actually, it's not necessarily your body is not worn down. It's your hormones, that are slowly, waning, your estrogen supplies.
Yeah, we can put the finger to ovaries, we can point the finger to ovaries. They are the main culprit here. Because they are the ones producing estrogens. And they stop producing it, and that's where all the trouble comes.
Good gosh. Now, I'm really glad that you brought up estrogen, Dr. Ariba, because estrogen is actually a really, really important hormone in the body. So can you tell me a little bit about all the regulatory things that estrogen does for our body?
Estrogen plays a very major part in a female body's physiology. Well, it is present in males as well, but it's very important for our fertility. It's one of the major hormones that, because it's secreted by the ovaries, it manages its menstrual cycle. If estrogen is disturbed in the body, the menstrual cycle will get disturbed. Similarly, if estrogen is not up to the mark, the female might struggle with fertility. She might have fertility issues. Right. If she gets pregnant, she might have to face miscarriage and other issues that are associated with troubled pregnancies. Yeah. So estrogen is very, very paramount in the female body. And then libido. Our libido is controlled by our hormones. These are called sex hormones, both progesterone and testosterone. Yes. If the balance is disturbed, she might experience low libido, low sex drive, and this can be very troubling for her marital life, as this is a very important pillar. So
absolutely.
These are all the factors that are controlled by estrogen. Another very important thing that estrogen does to female body is it maintains their calcium level in the bones.
Yes.
So after menopause, females become prone to fractures because their bones become demineralized. The calcium is lost from them. Yeah. And even a very small fall can result into a very terrible fracture for elderly women. That's very sad.
And if you factor in, if you kind of factor in the average sort of nutritional, diligence of women, particularly in this part of the world, in Southeast Asia, where it's already such a struggle to make sure that, young women get the right kind of nutrition. And again, it's such a socio-cultural issue that it's probably very likely that osteoporosis is rife amongst South Asian women, and I'm sure across the world also, not to, sort of generalize. But then you already have bones which are just kind of borderline. You've had several pregnancies, which probably is leaching calcium out of your bones anyway to help make baby bones. And then your estrogen drops and your absorption of calcium goes down with it. So then here you are with your glass-like bones. But Dr. Razia, something that I also find interesting regards to estrogen and menopause is also how estrogen has an impact on our heart health, and how when estrogen decreases, our levels of LDL, which is bad cholesterol, go up, and HDL, which is the good stuff, go down. And that's also because of estrogen.
Exactly, Mina. I was about to add this thing to to what Dr. Ariba is telling, that estrogen also helps to plays a key role in maintaining the cardiovascular status of the females. Like they're at lower risks of the strokes, they're at lower risk of getting the myocardial infarction because of the estrogen. Because estrogen helps to keep the lipid profile normal. So those women. In the postmenopausal state, if you will see that they are more at risk of getting the cardiovascular accident after the menopause. So this is one of the additional advantage of the estrogen. One more thing I would add, that estrogen helps to keep the vaginal mucosa moist.
Yes.
Okay. So the women, they experience very bad dyspareunia and loss of libido, and they are not able to enjoy their sex when because of its deficiency.
Yep.
And it also helps to maintain the pelvic floor, muscles. Yeah.
Yes.
So when it is lost, the pelvic muscles become relaxed and lax, and they feel the urinary incompetence and urinary problems. So so the things start getting worsening. So I would say the estrogen is the one who keeps a woman, and once it is gone, then you rightly say, maybe we can say that the aging can start with that. So estrogen has a pivotal role in our lives, and it is basically the estrogen is the up and down that leads to the menopause. And
so Dr. Razia, like Dr. Reba said, like before menopause or sort of perimenopause, which can last for up to 10 years, where, slowly things are beginning to happen. And then you hit menopause, and then, you have that, your year without a period and all of that happens. So then what happens in the post-menopausal stage? Because that also takes a while for the body to kind of fully adjust to this almost complete lack of estrogen in the body. And that's also another settling phase, isn't it? So then what should somebody expect for that stage of menopause?
So when a woman goes into the menopause, she should expect that for the next 2 to 3 years, she still has to face some as I was explaining, the hot flashes, and she has to keep her diet healthy. She has to exercise because her bones are getting weak. She has to take her calcium, vitamin D supplements. Okay, because there is a high risk of the fractures because of the estrogen deficiency. And plus smoking is one of the factor that that can bring more bad hot flushes to such.
So it exacerbates.
Women. So they should stop. Yeah, it exacerbates. So stop smoking, stop drinking. So these things they have to stop, and they should change their lifestyle. They should have the more healthy diet, regular exercise, and they should cut off the layoffs like watching TV and these things.
Because taking away everything.
No, I mean I want to. Why I'm saying this, because this ultimately affects their brain also. So you have to keep this stimulating the brain also. So start playing the crosswords, these things to keep yourself alert. Menopause has these problems, so we have to face these problems. So we should guide our women that this is the lifestyle that can give them the better life, quality life.
No, so I think that's an important. I think that's a very important thing to consider, that in an average lifespan for a woman with a sort of regularly functioning body, menopause is just a fact of life in many ways. But at the same time, and maybe Ariba, you can weigh in here, Dr. Saiba, about, of course, it's going to happen to everybody, right? And if we are informed and we're aware of what to expect, then we can manage accordingly. But do you think that this also requires some kind of maybe counseling as well? Because if you're leading a fairly active or a particular kind of life, and now all of a sudden, you have to cut back on things, give up some habits, kind of change your lifestyle, and these are all sort of big changes, and to sort of factor in your aging as well. Like there are a lot, it seems like it's a lot of things to have to come to terms with.
Basically, it's something that occurs, as you said, everybody has to go through this transitional phase of their life. So if we just accept it, and rather than being anxious about it, I think we can take it won't take a toll on us that much. And if we're leading a healthy lifestyle, as you said, then it wouldn't take a toll at all. Because sedentary lifestyle is actually the bad person. So if we are a couch potato, we like to lay down all day, eat a lot of junk, and stay away from all the greens and all that 5 days. So definitely we'll have to give that up. But if you're already eating a very healthy lifestyle, we do have exercise in our daily routines. We do have some brain stimulating activities that we are working women, and we go out and about and we use our brains. So this is something that will come and go. But yes, having said that, there are certain problems that are associated with it, and even healthy women who are fit, who are not overweight, even they find it very hard to adjust to. As Dr. Razia mentioned, vaginal dryness, itching, and night sweats, all these things, they eventually get a toll on you because you get irritable during the day, and you don't feel comfortable doing all the activities that you were doing previously. So this is actually a good thing to go and consult your gynecologist. So they can put you on certain medicines that can help you get over with these symptoms that are actually troubling you. So there are a lot of preparations available, but you should never start them on your own. You should always consult your gynecologist.
Don't Google things and go to the pharmacy.
I know. We're all Google doctors here. So that's why I'm saying that obviously these are medicines. These are not sweets. So they have their own side effects as well. So you should always consult your consultant and ask her opinion or his opinion before starting these medicines. These are called hormone replacement therapy, HRT.
Absolutely. And I want to talk to you a little more. I want to talk to you in a little bit more detail about HRT, but we're going to take a very quick break at this juncture, and we'll be back in a flash with more information about menopause. Stay with us. Welcome back to the coffee table, where we are having a fantastic conversation about menopause and all the things associated with it. What should you expect? How can you manage it? It's going to happen to all of us. But if we go into it prepared, then it hopefully will have less potential to make our lives miserable. And we can just sort of get on with things in a brave and well-managed way. We're in conversation with gynecologists and obstetricians, Dr. Ariba Saqib and Dr. Razia Tanveer. So before the break, Dr. Ariba, we were talking about different ways of managing one's menopause. And I want to talk about that in just a second. But before that, I have a question, and that is, and this is something that you mentioned earlier also, is that we all have an ovarian store, which is the amount of eggs that you will have in your whole life. Your little girls are born with them in their ovaries already. So basically, it's probably variable. I'm sure now you are the expert here, that the number of eggs is, depends on you and your body and your genetics and all of that, I'm sure. So you can't really say when menopause will happen for you, but basically when the eggs run out, there's your menopause. So then, with that in mind, what happens with early or premature menopause? Because I know that also happens to people. It's not as often, but it is a thing.
Call it in the terms of ovaries or ovarian reserve, it's called premature ovarian depletion. And it's when the ovaries, their ovarian reserve gets depleted before time. And it's very sad to see, Mina, that a lot of young girls, they come into our clinics and very unfortunate that their ovarian reserve has been finished at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. And because they've recently got married, they're trying to start a family, and it's only then that they visit a consultant. And it's only then that we have to break the bad news that unfortunately your menopause is going to start soon and your ovarian reserves are depleted. So it's basically multifactorial, as most of our other conditions in the body. It might be genetic. It might be certain mutations occurring in the girl. It might be because of the environmental factors. And I personally feel that the incidence of premature ovarian failure is at the rise. And that's probably because of all that's happening around us. All these pollutions, all these, our lifestyle, all the things we are consuming, all the junk. And this trend of takeaways and takeouts and home deliveries, it's actually ruining it because whatever we order comes in plastic bags or those cellophane bags. And they are really, really bad for female hormones. And what they are doing is, that's exactly what we are seeing in the clinics these days. Girls coming with premature ovarian failure, early onset menopause. And it's very distressing because there's only very little that we can do about it. Once it sets in and once the ovarian reserve is depleted, it's very unfortunate that till date, the physicians and clinicians, they don't have an absolute treatment for that. They are trying, and a lot of things are being tried these days, PRPs, stem cell therapies, but unfortunately, none of these has a very promising result so far. So we have our hands tied at the moment.
No, that's actually very worrying. And Dr. Razia, what are the symptoms for premature ovarian depletion the same as menopause symptoms? Because in a way, like, it's also something to be mindful of for your own physical health. And sort of what are the things that, the average menstruating young woman should be observing about her cycle in order to know what is normal and what isn't?
And the premature ovarian insufficiency, I will call it POI, the premature ovarian insufficiency, what happens that estrogen reserves starts getting lower day by day. Okay, so the foremost and the most commonly presented complaint is that they come with irregular periods.
Right.
Okay, or they come with the inability to conceive. This is the main thing they present to us. So when we, for every patient who comes for infertility or comes with irregular periods, we go for the hormonal, hormonal profile and all that. And then in that in that time, we find that the FSH level is very high. And then we go for further testing like AMH and antral follicles and all these, then we find that there is no more ovarian reserve. So I would say that yes, irregular periods is one of that, and you cannot come to know immediately because you don't expect anyone to have no periods or have the menopause at the age of 20 or 30.
Exactly.
It is very, very rare. Yeah, it may be because, getting the premature menopause less than 40 is the incident is 1 in 100. Right. And less than 30 is 1 in 1,000. And less than 20 is more rare. So you don't expect all these things. So it comes by chance. The women themselves didn't know that what's happening with them. It is only when we work out, then we find that she has entered into the premature ovarian insufficiency. So we cannot predict it,
Yes. But do you, Dr. Azia, that this is also because a lot of women only go to a gynecologist after they've got married and they want to have a baby? Shouldn't young women, because you start menstruating in your teens, right? And that's a very long time between the start of your cycle and the whole sort of menarche to the point where you want to have a child. And all those years in between, you just kind of go along with no medical monitoring whatsoever. Like, don't you think that that's also problematic? Like, for example, if somebody is experiencing low levels of estrogen at maybe 17, if they had regular checkups, maybe you could catch it and something could be done.
Unfortunately, Meena, that is what happens in our society, that until there is a major problem, they don't come to the gynecologist. Mothers just think that she has periods, I had the same periods, no problem, I had delayed periods. So they just keep on doing some desi things at home and they don't come to the gynecologist for that. Until when there is a serious issue, like when she gets married or when she's not conceiving for 2-3 years, then only they come to us. And at that time, not only I would say that not only these menstrual things come up, there are many medical problems we diagnose at that time. Because this is the first time they have come to the hospital, They've never been to the hospital. So the poor girl may be suffering from some coagulation defect since her childhood, and she never came to us, and with a hemoglobin of 6, she is coming to us. So this is the dilemma, and this is, and I have girls who came with a big fibroids, 28-week size fibroids, and they never came to the hospital. So, and the mother is just thinking that just her tummy is coming out, maybe she's eating too much, and that's it. But when she came, so it's not only with this menopause, premature menopause. This is unfortunate with all the women problems, and we don't have that type of health system where every girl is screened annually or at least 2 yearly.
Absolutely.
Even pap smears are not being done here 3 yearly. Since I'm back from outside, I have found that this CS cervix is so common here because nobody is doing pap smears here.
No, and the HPV conversation is a whole different can of germs, as it were, also. But this is so important, is that seeing a gynecologist regularly has nothing to do with any other aspect of your life, married or unmarried. It has everything to do with the health of your body, and women's bodies and women's health is neglected all the time by women themselves also, because we've internalized this silly squeamishness about our own bodies and what's going on with them, and we've internalized these ideas that, oh well, it might be normal that if everybody has terrifically horrible cramps, for example, well, you know, my mom did, my grandmother did. That's a problem. It's something that all the women in your family have. It's not okay. You have to see your doctor and you have to make sure you're healthy. And it's really important. I'm going off on a tangent here, but I feel very strongly about this. So Dr. Eba, let's now finally talk about hormone replacement therapy, for example, because that is one approach that we can take to managing menopause, and even, can you start it before your menopause and in those sort of horrific 10 years of slow decline? When is a good time to start HRT?
Wow. Well, I think Dr. Razia would be in a better condition to answer this. But I think, in my opinion, I think they need to wait till the menopause actually establishes itself. Okay. Because we really don't know how long the perimenopausal period is going to last. Okay. And the transition it can be slow and steady. It can be abrupt for certain women. So, but anyways, it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah. We need to see and wait till it happens eventually. And as Dr. Razia initially said, that women who we brand as menopausal or postmenopausal are the ones who do not have their period for a whole 1 year. Yeah. And that is when we brand them as postmenopausal. Yeah. So we really can't say that since the periods are becoming irregular, so yes, let's start on the therapy now. So you need to wait. And then when you're ready for, when you're branded as postmenopausal, then I think it's a very good idea.
Like specifically established.
Yeah.
Because I was reading somewhere also, because I was again reading somewhere, and again, you're the fertility specialist here. When you are premenopausal or even kind of nearing it, that means that there's a decline in fertility, but that doesn't mean that you are completely infertile. And it is possible to get pregnant in your 40s, let's say, even if you are kind of, in the neighborhood of menopause. That doesn't mean that game's over just yet. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yes, that's perfectly correct. Because a lot of people, there has been a lot of stories around us that women thought that, okay, now I'm just, perimenopausal, I don't have to worry about it. So she stopped her contraceptives and she conceived. And when she actually conceived, that's the funny part. She thought that, okay, now I'm in menopause. In my menopause, I haven't been menstruating for the last 3-4 months. So now I'm done. So when she her belly started growing, and she has had nausea, and she was feeling actually very good. So somebody suggested to her, why don't you go for a pregnancy test? And she said, nah, I don't think
what
I'm
do you mean?
It's just menopause. Yes. She was like, just look at my age. It's menopause. She was a consultant herself. So she's it's menopause. It's nothing. It's just that. And eventually, when I know, and it was actually a surprise for them when the baby popped out. They kind of found out when she was 4 or 5 months into pregnancy. That is when she found out that she was pregnant.
So that is something to consider. It's something to consider because you haven't had a period for a few months in a row even. It doesn't mean that now you are infertile. It just means that, the jig is still afoot, as Sherlock Holmes would say. So, Dr. Razia, coming back to HRT, when is a good time to take it? And then if you take it, what does that imply? How is that also something that needs to be managed? And what are the factors one should consider before starting HRT or even doing it at all? So are there some groups of women who should not be doing it? Sort of what's the scoop?
Yes, Mina. Actually, the menopause hormonal therapy, exactly what we call it. We started. There are some indications on which we have to start it.
Right.
Irregular periods, I think, is not an indication. Once we classify a woman with the menopause, and for those women who have symptoms like severe symptoms, moderate to severe hot flashes, then she has bad recurrent urinary tract infections, vaginal dryness, mood changes, loss of libido, loss of sleep, and we divide them into mild, moderate and severe. For the mild form, we just ask them for the lifestyle change,
right.
Okay, for mild to moderate. And for the mild one, we explain them the hot flashes that are not bothering her too much, okay?
Yes. It's manageable.
And moderate the hot flashes, that are somewhat affecting her life, and the severe are the one that these hot flashes, they are coming in the morning, in the evening, and she's completely disturbed because of them.
Yes.
So this is the time in moderate to severe you have to think about starting the menopause hormone, this HRT, hormonal replacement therapy. Now, when we talk about the hormonal replacement therapy, we can't just start it like that she has come, okay, she has hot flashes, now
here's the pill.
this Clymen or Levial, this take the pill, that sort. No, you have to take a thorough history. You have to first rule out that there is no history of breast cancer in her, there in her or in her family. There is no deep venous thrombosis in personal history or in the family history, and endometrial cancer. Okay, so these things she has, and her liver is functioning fine. LFTs we have to do for that, and so once we select a patient for the hormonal replacement therapy, then only we advise them to go through.
Right.
And I normally go through one transvaginal scan also to know about the endometrial thickness, that she is already suffering from some sort of endometrial hyperplasia or endometrial cancer, and I start her on the OCPs, the hormonal replacement therapy, and I also want to do the mammogram for her, that she doesn't have any breast problem, see a breast or anything like that, So once I'm fine with that, when I feel that she is a good candidate for the hormonal replacement therapy, only then I start with that.
But Dr. Razia, what is the connection between hormone replacement therapy or menopausal sort of therapy and these cancers that you mentioned?
When we give the hormonal replacement therapy, it has effect on the estrogen has effect on the breast. Okay, so if we give the HRT for the long time, so there is a risk that she can develop the breast cancer if we give it for more than 5 years or 10 years. Okay, there was a big study that took place in early 2000 in the US over the 40 centers on which they gave this HRT to the women, and they find out the results and their long-term effects on the on women. Because what was happening at that time in that era in the US was that almost the 40% of the people, of the women, postmenopausal women, were using the hormone replacement therapy. But there was no study that justified that whether it is they are doing it right or wrong, whether it has any long-term effect or not. So it kept on for 13 years.
Wow.
Okay, that was follow-up was for 13 years.
So what did the study show?
That was the Women Health Initiative study, and it ultimately showed that we cannot give the HRT for the long period of the time. We should give it only for the short duration, not more than 2 to 3 years, because if we take it for the long years, like 10 years, 8 years, more than 5 years, the risk of breast cancer increases, the risk of deep venous thrombosis increases, endometrial cancer, these things, and more
so
risk
basically, yes, sorry to interrupt. So we're looking at HRT as a short-term post-menopausal symptom management approach, and at some point you need to give up the HRT also and kind of allow your body to settle down into its new phase of freedom, as one could say.
Give the HRT for only once her symptoms settle down. And normally these symptoms settle down in 2 to 3 years. Then they don't need it. Okay, that when the symptoms set, so just give it for 2-3 years. Start it for those who are suffering from the hot flashes. They're really bad. So give, or those other problems. Give after screening them, give them the HRT, but give it for the short duration, not for the longer duration.
And why not? If you are not at risk for these conditions, and you're having terrible symptoms, and you have something that can make your life easier, then you should go for it. Why ever not? Sort of don't complicate things for yourself. So Dr. Ariba, I have a very sort of basic layperson question to ask you also, and that is that if you get your period early, does that mean that your menopause will also happen earlier for you? Like, for example, you know, some girls get their period at like 10 or 11, which to my mind is early, but I don't know, maybe the parameters have changed now. But does that mean that then they will get their menopause maybe earlier than 50? Is that a thing?
As you initially said, that there's only this particular pool of oocytes that's in our ovaries. Yeah. The menopause will set in whenever the pool is depleted. And with every menstrual cycle, with every period that the girl has, a certain pool of those oocytes, it's burned away. So yes, early menarche, we call it menarche when the female, she first has a period. So early menarche may cause early menopause. So that's why it's always a window that is given for a particular population rather than a particular year that gives that, for example, usually menopause occurs at 50 years, let's say. But usually a window is given. That's usually for a population, 45 to 55 is the year, is the period where usually women, they get their menopause. And exactly menarche is the same. That usually, let's say if we say that these days, it has shifted a bit backwards. Because I remember when we were in our teenage and when we had in our period, that was a bit further away from what it is today.
Yes.
So yes, it has shifted. It has shifted backwards. So that means that these girls probably will have menopause a bit earlier than what we'll be expecting at our group of friends. Yeah, definitely.
So that is something to consider as well. And again, all of these things are happening because of our lifestyles and the food that we eat and the world that we live in, and everything is just sort of, it's very complicated, but it's also very simple at the same time. Thank you so much, Dr. Ariba and Dr. Razia, for being with me today and having this wonderful forthright conversation about menopause and what happens before, what happens after, what happens during. And I think that we can all agree that all of these symptoms are ones that deeply affect your quality of life. And just because menopause is going to happen to all of us doesn't mean that anybody has to suffer silently. Well, you know, there are options for you. There are therapies available. There are conversations to be had with people around you. You know, we're not alone. And I think it's high time that we got over this sort of fear of our bodies and the squeamishness about our physical health, and sort of, you know, took charge of our bodies and went and saw doctors in a timely way. Moms who are watching, take your girls to see the gynecologist. It has nothing to do with whether they're married or not. Everybody needs to know what's going on in their body in order to look after it and to take care of ourselves the best way we know how. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time on the coffee table with wonderful more information and chats. Bye.